Replacement theology. For over 5 centuries, it has been accepted thinking that the Christian church is now the Israel of God, and the Jewish people have forfeited that distinction. In many seminaries today, this teaching is prominently espoused. It's a faulty understanding. It is somewhat understandable how this faulty doctrine became accepted as truth. After all, how could the Scriptures be literally understood? That Israel would once again become a nation, and Jewish people regathered from all over the earth. Centuries ago, such prophecies would be widely interpreted figuratively, but today Isaiah's question can be answered quite literally. Shall the earth be made to bring such a thing in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? Isaiah asks in chapter 66, verse 8. The answer is yes, a nation can and would be created in a day. But hundreds of years ago, who could have foreseen the United Nations? Beyond such a surprise development, there were other historical reasons for Christianity to conveniently whisk aside the existence of the Jewish people as remaining in the economy of God. In its earliest years, followers of Yeshua, Jesus, were Messianic devotees of a sect of Judaism. It wasn't until the Bar Kokhba rebellion between 132 and 135 CE that a separation between Jews and Gentiles took place. Rabbi Akiva, who was of great stature, declared the military leader Bar Kokhba to be the Messiah. It was at this juncture that the followers of the carpenter from Galilee were to be excluded from the Jewish community. By 135 CE, the Jerusalem congregation had become a Gentile movement. Later, in 196 CE, a church council was held in Caesarea, but no Jewish representatives attended. Here, Sunday worship was instituted and Easter substituted for the celebration of Passover. In 325, the Council of Nicaea re-emphasized the importance of keeping Easter and Sunday. None of the bishops involved in that decision were Jewish. Several years later, the Council at Antioch went even further, decreeing that anyone celebrating the 14th of Nisan as the Passover was to be excommunicated from the Christian church. From that time on, the Christian establishment and the Jewish community sought to exclude the other. Ignorance and the illiteracy of the masses further extended anti-Jewish sentiment. In time, this grew to an understanding that Jews were the enemy of Christianity and therefore the enemy of God. So within a period of 200 years, the separation was culturally complete, with each group seeing the other as spiritually illegitimate. In retrospect, it was tragic that this early Christianity lost its Jewish moorings, especially when considering that they were so apparent in their canonization of the Scriptures. For example, in the book of Acts, chapter 21, verses 29 and 22:3, the Apostle Paul says, "I am a Jew." Similarly, in Romans 11:1, "I am of Israel." And in 1 Corinthians 11:22, "I am a Hebrew." Notice Paul didn't describe himself as a former Jew, previously of Israel, or discontinued Hebrew. Rather, emphasizing his heritage and not running from it, he says he would be a Jew to the Jews in 1 Corinthians 9:20 and 10:31 through 33. Paul, in Acts 16:3, also recommended that Timothy, whom he mentored, become circumcised to emphasize his half-Jewish lineage. Apparently, the preservation of Jewishness of the faith was important to Paul. In Acts 13:5, 14:1, and 18:19, he visits synagogues. When he would come to a city, he would go first to the Jewish house of worship. He did so on the Jewish Sabbath day, on Saturday. From Romans 1:16, we see it was Paul's usual practice to bring the good news of Messiah to the Jewish community first, and it appears he understood it as a pattern to be followed. Paul says that Gentiles who become believers in Yeshua as Messiah are the wild olive branches who have been grafted into a Jewish olive tree, in Romans 1, verses 23 and 24. Replacement theology has always turned this truth inside out. It asserts that Jews who have become believers in the New Covenant should renounce their Jewish heritage and be grafted into the Christian olive tree. How obviously this directly contradicts the Pauline doctrine. Some may draw a distinction between the Jewish people and the modern state of Israel. This is not valid. Jews are Israel in diaspora. Jews are Israelites in exile, as the Bible would express it. The term Jew obviously comes from the tribe located in Judea in Israel. In that location, there were remnants of the other tribes of Israel. Currently, the doctrine of replacement theology has been commonly espoused by old-line Christian denominations which have taken a liberal bent in the interpretation of the Scriptures. Significantly, inroads against this understanding have been made in many sectors of evangelical Christianity, especially non-denominational churches. Scriptural references to the Jewish people refer to a literal, physical, and material people. Gentile Christians who espouse replacement theology have insisted that they take over the blessings as being chosen by God. This tug of war in understanding has now been solved. The nation of Israel exists and will receive every prophetic promise that God has made to it. And, on a spiritual level, those who believe in the effectiveness of the blood of atonement shed by Yeshua, the Messiah, will inherit every spiritual blessing. Both statements are true. Blessings occur and benefit on two levels at the same time, the physical and the spiritual. The one does not negate the other. Romans 11:25 states that blindness in part has happened to Israel. In fact, that partial blindness is withering, as increasing numbers of Jewish people are accepting the Jewish Messiah. It might be said that replacement theology has been a partial blindness of sincere Gentile Bible believers. Thanks be to God that in our age, scales are coming off the eyes of both Jews and Gentiles.